guys, Cassie here. So I've been wanting to start an AuthorTube channel for a while now, and I figured what better way to do it than to introduce my channel with the AuthorTube Newbie Tag. So there's a list of 13 questions that I will be answering to give you a better sense of who I am as an author. So let's get started. Question number 1, how did you find out about AuthorTube? So the first AuthorTuber I ever watched, I believe, was Jenna Moreci. At the time, I didn't know that there was such a thing as AuthorTubing. I was just watching her videos and enjoyed them. And I can't honestly remember exactly how it happened. I think either she mentioned the word AuthorTube in one of her videos, or someone in the comments mentioned AuthorTube, and I was like, wait a second, is there like an entire community out there of people doing videos like this? Because that's awesome, and maybe I should be a part of it someday. So here we are. Question number 2. What is your preferred writing tense, point of view, and category of story? I mostly prefer to write in past tense with a third-person limited point of view. And as far as category of story, I actually just recently discovered that new adult is a thing. I previously thought it went from young adult to adult, and I kind of felt like I wasn't sure where I fit in there. So now that I know that new adult is a thing, I think that might be me. My first book was written from the perspective of an adult woman working as a criminal psychologist for the police department. So I suppose that would be categorized as an adult novel. The sequel to that novel that I'm working on right now is still written from an adult perspective, but the adult in the story is attending college, even though he's older than that. So I'm not really sure which category that fits into. And then there's another story that I'm toying with right now that kind of involves adults and high school students sort of mixed together. So I'm not sure exactly what category of story that would be placed in, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that my stories are usually gonna be either new adult or adult. Question number 3, what genres do you write in? I don't really like to limit myself and say that I always write in this genre, but I would say that romance is my favorite part of any story. So whether the story is strictly a romance, or maybe it's like a suspense or a horror with a really heavy romantic subplot, either way, there's always gonna be a lot of romance in whatever I write. You can pretty much guarantee it. Number 4, are you a plotter, pantser, or plantster? For those of you who aren't really part of the writing world and have no idea what this means, basically plotters are people who use a lot of outlining and really plot their stories before they start writing. Whereas pantsers are people who just kind of go in swinging, write whatever they feel like, and it sort of falls together. And then a plantster, I don't know. That would just be, I guess, sort of a mix of the two. I actually don't really like any of these. I'm gonna be a total snob right now and say I reject them all. Recently I was watching a sort of podcast thing with an author, and I really wish I could remember who it was so I could like give them credit. But she mentioned that someone she knew came up with the term puzzler, and that definitely is me. I am a puzzler. So basically how she described a puzzler is someone who writes little pieces here and there, not necessarily in chronological order, and then they put them all together, and after that sort of follow an outline. That's basically my writing process. I'm gonna make a video probably in the future describing that more specifically, but that's what I do. So I prefer the term puzzler, I guess. Number 5, are you self-published, traditionally published, or yet to be published? I am a self-published author through Amazon CreateSpace is what I'm using right now. Although I'm not sure if I'm going to continue using that. I haven't really had any major problems with them. But I did recently watch a comparison video that Jenna Moreci put up between CreateSpace and Ingram Spark. And Ingram Spark seems to have a lot of benefits that CreateSpace doesn't have. So I don't know. But yeah, I am self-published. I much prefer that to the idea of being traditionally published. Honestly, nowadays, I think, especially since so many people use ebooks and they buy things online and they discover authors by watching YouTube videos and things that I can do on my own, it just It doesn't seem like a traditional publisher offers a whole lot of benefits, especially when balanced with the negative sides of being traditionally published, like not having as much control over your creative decisions. There are a lot of pros and cons, we all know that, but I am very happily self-published. Number 6, what AuthorTube related videos can we expect to find on your channel? That is a really good question. Honestly, I'm not really sure exactly where I'm gonna be going with this. I do have one video sort of planned for the future that's gonna be talking about different romance tropes that I like. I love watching trope talk kind of videos. It's one of my favorite AuthorTube related things to watch because I feel like it just gives you a lot of inspiration, or at least it does for me. Hearing all these different types of stories that a certain author likes or doesn't like just gets those creative juices flowing, you know, listening to all the things that other people love to read. So I have one of those planned for the future. I'm sure I'll be doing more of these kind of tags because, let's face it, they're easy. So yeah, just basic AuthorTube type stuff, you know. Writing advice, talking about my process. Maybe I'll talk about what it was like to self-publish my first novel. Maybe I'll do some reviews on different services I've used. I don't know. We'll see. Number 7, when did you start writing? When I came out of the womb? Okay, maybe not quite that early, but honestly, I've pretty much been writing my entire life. I've actually specifically wanted to be a professional author since I was a child. I used to write children's stories all the time. I was writing basically before I could even read, sort of. So yeah, pretty much forever. Number 8, what is the first story you ever wrote? So as I said, I've been writing since I was a child. I used to write children's stories because as a child, that's all I could really do. Even as a child, I knew that I didn't want to write children's stories when I was older. I wanted to write grown-up novels, but of course, you know, I didn't have the knowledge to do so at the time. The first story I can ever remember writing was called Pigot's Tail Problem. I had a series of children's books all about different animals having problems related to their tails. It sounds kind of silly and I could go into more detail, but honestly, I've actually thought about revisiting that subject and revamping some of those stories and maybe publishing them as children's stories, because while obviously my writing wasn't fantastic as a little kid, 4 of the stories are actually like kind of really clever, if I do say so myself. So I don't want to give away all the gold. Just have to wait until Pigot's Tail Problem is released and you can read it to your children. Number 9. Ugh, I bent my pinky. 9. Which authors have inspired your writing the most? So honestly, growing up, I've always been more of a writer than I have been a reader. So I don't know if I can really think of any authors that have specifically inspired my writing. I was very recently inspired by John Green. I read Paper Towns a couple months ago, which is crazy because that's been out for forever and I've wanted to read it for forever and just never got around to it. And I was really struck by his voice. He has just such a unique first-person voice, and I don't usually write in first person, but it did kind of make me want to try it out because I feel like you can have a really super unique voice in first person that doesn't necessarily have to follow the same rules as writing in third person does. And I feel like John Green just did that really well. In fact, his book actually kind of made me a little depressed because I felt like I'm never gonna be that good of a writer. So yeah, I guess that was inspiring. But really, it was like really inspiring reading Paper Towns by John Green. And the only other author I can say that actually has directly inspired my writing is Jenna Moreci. She's by far my favorite AuthorTuber. She has amazing writing advice. If you haven't checked out her channel, please go do so. She's incredible. She has so much wisdom and she's fun and spunky and just a blast to watch. I also recently read her second novel, The Savior's Champion, and oh my gosh, I am in love with that story. It's incredible. I could make a review video for it, which I mean, I might do that. Honestly, I can't even think of like any negative thing to say about it. I figured she would be a good writer since she has such good advice on writing, but you know, the difference between talking about writing and actually writing is Some people might be pretty good at one and not so good at the other. But Jenna Marissi absolutely blew me away with The Savior's Champion. I cannot wait for the next book in that series. And yeah, she's been really inspiring to me as a writer, both from AuthorTubing and from reading her actual book. I have learned so much from her videos and from her writing. So yeah, Jenna Marissi has definitely inspired my writing the most. Number 10, do you schedule your writing sessions or do you just write whenever you find the time? So at various times I've tried to schedule writing sessions, and sometimes for a while that works out where, you know, I'm really motivated. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write every day. But for the most part, I kind of just go with the flow. And mostly why I do this is because I love writing so much. And I find that the more limitations I put on myself and the more I try to structure things and make it more like a job or a chore or a task to be completed, the less I enjoy it. So sometimes scheduling can be good for me, but other times it kind of just takes all of the joy and the fun out of writing. And I find myself sitting down to write and going, why am I doing this when I'm not enjoying it at all? It completely defeats the point of writing. Because for me, while I would maybe like writing to be my full-time career someday, my top priority in writing is to have a good time and create something that I'm proud of, that maybe other people can enjoy, but even if they don't, even if it's just for me, that's good enough too. 11, do you type on a computer, typewriter, write everything out by hand, or do you use a blend of those? Mostly I write on my laptop. Sometimes I write by hand if I can't use my laptop for some reason. And occasionally I also jot down notes on my phone, especially little bits of dialogue that maybe come to me while I'm watching a TV show with my husband, or I'm out at work or at the gym, someplace where I don't have a notebook or my laptop, but I just don't want to forget this very specific word choice that I used. I also have a list of notes on my phone for story ideas, just particularly inspiring quotes, stuff like that. Number 12. I almost exclusively write at the mall, of all places. There are reasons for this. So for the most part, when I try to write at home, I end up sort of giving up sooner than I would if I were out and about. For example, if I write for maybe 20 minutes and things are really flowing and then it starts to slow down, because there are so many other options available to me, like to stop writing and watch TV instead, or read a book instead, or go online instead, there are all these other things vying for my attention when I'm at home. So it's a lot easier for me to say, I'm kind of done, let's put this away and do something else. But when I'm out and about, I've taken all the time to get ready, to travel to that place, to bring all my stuff with me, to sit down, make my little office area. I found that the inconvenience of that kind of forces me to work longer than I expected. I start to feel a little blocked after 20 minutes. I feel like, well, you know, was 20 minutes really worth all the effort that I took to get here? Let's push through a little bit and see if we can get a little more out of this time. Then I end up working for like an hour or an hour and a half and get a lot more done. So for that reason, I like to write in public. And the reason I chose the mall is they have relatively comfortable seats there and it's free. I love writing in little coffee shops like Starbucks or at Barnes & Noble, but I feel like it's kind of rude to go to somewhere like that and not buy something if you're gonna be sitting there taking up space in their place for an hour or longer. So usually I go to the mall because it's open and public and it's not really rude to take up space there for an hour or longer without spending any money. So, yay. Number 13. What are you most looking forward to now that you're a part of AuthorTube? I would say that I'm most looking forward to the community. That's kind of why I'm doing this. Although it is fun to make videos about writing, videos are not necessarily my thing. I've tried to do YouTube videos in the past. I made a couple, but they were kind of more about like controversial subjects, and I just decided that I didn't want to invite all the drama into my life of having, comments and, getting involved in that kind of a community. Although I like watching those types of videos, I'm not really sure I want to be a part of that community because it just invites a lot of drama. I have found from observing and reading and writing comments on AuthorTuber type videos that the community of AuthorTubers is really positive and really encouraging, and there's not really a lot of drama or negativity. I mean, it's the internet, so I'm sure I'll find some somewhere. But for the most part, it's not the same as being a part of, like, I don't know, the feminist community or the anti-SJW community. Those kinds of subjects just carry a lot of controversy and a lot of drama with them naturally. So talking about writing, I feel like is a little bit of a niche market that it's not necessarily going to explode and be this thing that everybody's talking about and commenting on. And I just kind of like to stay under the radar a little bit because I'm not really great at this kind of a thing, at least not yet. I don't know, I have a lot to learn about YouTubing. So yeah, I'm excited about the community. I'm excited to be part of this group of writers. I don't really like going to like writing clubs and stuff. I have a really hard time with sharing my work with people, especially out loud. I'm happy to like send someone a little bit of my book, but I hate reading my stuff out loud or having other people read it in front of me. So I've never really had a community or a group of authors to like exchange ideas with and talk about writing. And I feel like doing that through the internet, particularly through YouTube, will be really helpful and just encouraging and inspiring. So that's what I'm excited about. That's all I have for you today. Thanks everyone for watching. If you liked this video, click the like button. If you want to stick around and follow my journey as I figure out what the heck I'm gonna be doing here on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. All my social media is in the description below. Follow me there if you want, or don't, whatever. And have a great day. Bye.